Good evening to you all, depending on where you're signing in from today. Appreciate you being here today. Thank you for joining us for the Safety Innovation Challenge Workplace Fatigue, powered by TechConnect and the National Safety Council. My name is Jonathan Yakshaw with TechConnect. I'll be the host and moderator for today's session. I am joined by Hannah Everett, Senior Project Manager with the National Safety Council, and we're going to take you through the Fatigue Challenge over the next 45 minutes. On your screen right now, you can see the agenda for today's session. At any point during today's session, if you have a question that you want to pose to either Hannah or myself, please avail yourself of the Q&A chat box, type your question in there, and during the second half of today's session, we will get to as many of those questions as we can. If we don't have time for all of your questions, don't worry. I've got some information later on for you to share so that you can ask questions directly outside of the webinar. With that, let's get into it. So first off, what is the Fatigue Safety Challenge? Basically, in a very tight nutshell, it is looking for technologies to impact fatigue in the workplace, either through detection, prediction, or quantification, mitigation, or reduction. On the right-hand side of your screen there, you'll see a couple of different possible pathways, such as wearables, analytics platforms, safety systems, robotics, AI and ML platforms. Now, what you should take away from that list is that it is not an exhaustive list. If there are other technologies that maybe don't fit on those possible pathways, but still have a positive impact on addressing fatigue in the workplace, National Safety Council would like to hear from you. Okay, so doesn't have to necessarily fit into one of those neat little categories. If it does, fantastic. But if it doesn't, we would still like to hear from you. On the bottom of your screen there, you will see that URL, fatiguesafety.techconnect.org. That is going to be your best friend when it comes to this challenge. And my colleague in the background there, Katie, hello Katie, has also put the link into the chat box as well, so you can access it. Now, if you're here for the webinar, you have accessed the web page already, so well done, but keep visiting there. Next up, timeline. You're going to want to know a couple of dates here to keep them in mind. Next up, after today's webinar, January 7th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, there's going to be an office hour session. That office hour session is really meant to be an opportunity for interested individuals and organizations to ask questions to a representative of TechConnect about the challenge. It's not really to present new information, but just to give you the opportunity to say, hey, I've got a question about the program. That second bullet point there, that's going to be kind of a big one. And I'd say kind of in quotation marks. It's a very important one. It's the submission deadline for the Fatigue Safety Challenge. January 16th by 8 p.m. Eastern. That is a Friday. Make sure that you get your submission in ahead of that deadline. Gets to be Saturday morning, and you realize, oh no, I didn't submit it. Well, you're kind of going to be out of luck by that point. So make sure that you get your submission in by that point. And my colleague Katie has popped something else into the chat message there. Registration for the office hours. Thank you very much, Katie. The very big one is the final event. That's going to take place in May 7th and 8th in Baltimore, Maryland, at the National Safety Council Safety Congress and Expo. Semi-finalists will be notified in mid-May about their opportunity to present at that event. And having been to a National Safety Council Safety and Congress back in Denver earlier this year, if you're interested in safety-related technologies, that's a really good place to be because it's massive when it comes to getting people to talk about safety technologies. And I'm sure Hannah will talk all about that sort of stuff in just a little bit. So, some frequently asked questions. So, to get some questions out of the way, are international responses welcome? Yes. The registration for this included a number of people from outside the United States, and we welcome you for being here. With very few exceptions, the National Safety Council is interested in international responses. So if you're a startup company from North Korea, you're probably going to be out of luck, but broadly speaking, you are welcome to respond. Is there a minimum TRL to respond? Generally speaking, no, there is not. However, there is an important caveat there. Your technology should be ready for a pilot, at least a pilot scale demonstration, the middle of next year. So if you're a really conceptual technology, you might not be able to make that deadline. But in general, there is not a minimum TRL. One of the other frequently asked questions is, can I submit more than once? Yes, you can. If you have multiple relevant technologies, we would like to hear about them. The one thing that I will say, though, is that you need to make a decision. If you have 3 technologies that support each other in their operation, and you have effectively an omnibus system, your response may want to focus on that umbrella performance rather than each individual underlying technology, because what you are proposing is that comprehensive system and not the individual supporting technologies. On the other hand, if you have 3 technologies and each one operates independent of one another, then you might want to think about submitting one response for each of them. The advantage of submitting one response for each of them, you get to talk more about how each one addresses fatigue in a more comprehensive and engaging way, rather than trying to cram all the information that you would want to share into one response. That's a decision you would have to make, but yes, in general, yeah, you can submit more than once. One of the other big questions that we tend to get is, how can I make my response stand out from everybody else's? What's going to be a good response? And there's some bullet points on your screen right now to talk about that. Be engaging and informative and responsive, keep it non-confidential, and don't be repetitive. The other piece of advice that I will give you is go to that URL on the screen. Check out the evaluation tab. You will see the kinds of information that the National Safety Council reviewers are going to be looking for. Everything that you put into your response should be in support of at least one, and ideally more than one, of those particular evaluation points. And if you're looking over your response and you realize that you've got information that doesn't really support one of those, take it out, replace it with something else. What you need to do is you are telling the National Safety Council a story about your technology, your organization, and what those two can do for the National Safety Council's partners. You want the National Safety Council reviewers to get done reading your response and say, yep, okay, this one is really cool. We need to learn more about them. If you can do that, then you've got a really good response. Again, on your screen there, you will see the submission deadline. Very important, Friday, January 16th by 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, as I said a little bit ago, if you've got questions at any point during today's session, use the Q&A box, pop your questions in, and Hannah and I will take the second half of our time to answer your questions. But outside of today's session, you realize that you have questions. You can contact us. There's an email address on your screen, challenges@techconnect.org. Pop your questions in there, and we will do our best to get you the information that you're looking for. Now, obviously, if it is January 16th at 7:30 p.m., that might not be the best time to ask your question, simply because we won't necessarily have time to get you the information that you're looking for. But between now and that submission deadline, if you've got questions, you want to make sure that we've got your application, please feel free to reach out and we will do the best that we can to answer your questions. All right. With that, I'm going to stop talking and we're going to turn it over to the expert here. We're going to let Hannah talk to you all about the fatigue challenge, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. So Hannah, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Let me pull up my PowerPoint here. All right, can you see my full screen PowerPoint?
Yes, we can. Go for it.
Awesome. So thank you again for sort of kicking us off and getting us started. My name's Hannah Everett. I'm the Senior Program Manager for the Work to Zero program here at the National Safety Council. And I'm, really excited to share some information with you today about the Workplace Fatigue Safety Innovation Challenge. The information that I'll share is a little bit deeper than the information that Jonathan shared, sort of at a higher level. So hopefully this will be really helpful for you to learn a little bit about, what we're looking for, learn a little bit about the challenge itself, the tech pavilion, and a little bit about Work to Zero in the process. So let's just jump right in. So for those who aren't familiar with the National Safety Council, the National Safety Council is a nonprofit organization that's been around for over 100 years. We were founded in 1913 after the deadly Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. And we serve over 13,000 member companies covering 41,000 plus work sites. Our mission is to save lives from the workplace to any place. We focus our efforts on workplace and roadway specific safety. And our mission is to eliminate leading causes of preventable death and injury so people can live their fullest lives. We offer a variety of different trainings, from first aid to implementing naloxone in the workplace. We have MSD related resources, so a little bit of everything for everyone to make sure that we're all getting home at the end of the day safely. So there's a QR code there if you want to learn a little bit more about the National Safety Council and the variety of different programs and resources and offerings that we have. The Safety Innovation Challenge is not exclusive in the sense that, it's not the only sort of grant-based program that the National Safety Council offers. We have a roadway grant program, an MSD one as well, so make sure to check those resources out. Digging down an additional layer to Work to Zero specifically. So Work to Zero is a program within the National Safety Council with a mission to eliminate fatality risks and fatality injuries, workplace injuries through the use of innovative technology. The Work to Zero program started in 2019. We were founded thanks to our generous champion donors, the McElhatton Foundation. And we have launched into a series of robust research efforts, producing case studies, educational materials, all designed to advocate for safety technology in the workplace, which was how the Safety Innovation Challenge and the Safety Tech Pavilion was born, creating an annual opportunity to showcase some of these technologies and get them into the hands of those who need it. So Work to Zero, as I sort of briefly mentioned in the last slide, we operate in what I like to call sort of the 3 pillars of our approach to achieving our mission. The first is through our research efforts. So we conduct robust annual research to identify the most effective technologies and pioneer ways to integrate them into the workplace. We recently released a small business guide to safety technology to help small businesses implement technologies in the workplace. We have ROI calculators to help organizations learn how to build the business case for implementing tech in the workplace. We have our safety innovation journey. We have reports, we have white papers, we have everything under the sun that you could need to learn about the technologies that are going to work for you, or technologies that are going to work to save lives in the workplace. Second, we have educational opportunities. We provide resources, tools, kits, one-pagers, webinars, in-person demos and sessions and workshops to increase the adoption of technology. And then we also have our partnerships. So we foster key partnerships with stakeholders in the safety innovation space, as well as organizations like the NCCCO Foundation and TechConnect, to make sure that we are strengthening technology and building advocacy for everyone in this environment, in this space. So now some of the 3 main ways that we work as Work to Zero. So transitioning, again, another layer down. So now you know about NSC, now you know about Work to Zero. Let's dig a little deeper into the Safety Innovation Challenge, which is a project and a program within Work to Zero. So the Safety Innovation Challenge was started a couple of years ago, and the goal is to showcase technologies at our Spring Safety Summit, which is taking place in May. This gives an opportunity for up to 10 finalists to be sort of showcased, to have be a space on our Safety Tech Pavilion, which is an exhibitor floor, to be able to get some foot traffic and share your technology with those attending the event. And at the end, we do have sort of a voting VIP reception to have some votes placed to select the top 3 finalists, and then from there we select the final finalist who will get an opportunity to be showcased on our Tech Hub Marketplace, which I can share a little bit of information about that a little later on. I did want to share in this slide that the Safety Innovation Challenge that we're discussing today is the Workplace Fatigue Safety Innovation Challenge. That is the applications that are available until January. They're part of Work to Zero. However, you'll notice from this photo that I have listed that there is another Safety Innovation Challenge that takes place at our NSC Congress in the fall that is focused on musculoskeletal disorders. So very important to keep those two Safety Innovation Challenges separate, that the MSD Solutions Lab has one of their own, and then Work to Zero has one of our own for the spring. So I don't know, JJ, has there been any questions just yet? I can't really see the Q&A screen, so stop me if anybody has any questions as I move along. So when and where is the Safety Technology Pavilion? As Jonathan mentioned, it will be taking place May 6th to the 8th at the Baltimore Convention Center. Really, really excited to be exhibiting at this space. I believe this will be my first time attending this event in Baltimore. So we're really excited to be able to have the opportunity to meet there in the spring. So a little bit of a focus on Work to Zero's emphasis on workplace fatigue. So as I mentioned before, the Safety Innovation Challenge itself has been running for about 2 years now. We first launched with a Safety Innovation Challenge on workers at height. Then our challenge from last year was through heat stress, and now we're focusing on workplace fatigue. We elect these risks based on the report that we conducted on the hazards that cause the highest fatalities in the workplace. So that's how we have decided to emphasize fatigue this year. The definition of fatigue that we are using for the challenge is fatigue is the body's first response to insufficient sleep, a disturbed sleep cycle, an overly demanding physical or mental workload, or an insufficient period of recovery from work. And as Jonathan mentioned, there is a sort of a variety of different types of tech that are used to address fatigue in the workplace that we could be looking for this challenge. That could include EHS softwares, analytic systems. It could include drones. It could include robotics. It could include visionware or impairment technologies. It could include anything in the transportation space, cab monitors, or wearable technologies that are monitoring, worker health and well-being. So really the possibilities are endless as far as the types of technology we're looking for. If you explore the eligibility requirements listed on the fatigue link, the fatigue webpage, we do ask that the technologies demonstrate a history of success. So we want to make sure that we're not focusing on, as Jonathan mentioned, sort of conceptual technologies. They do need to have a proven track record of either reducing, mitigating, or eliminating fatigue-related risk. So these are just some examples of those types of technologies that Work to Zero has worked with previous challenges. Some facts about fatigue, really important to understand, again, the emphasis on why fatigue is so important for us to focus on for this challenge. Compared to day shifts, workers on evening shifts are at 18% greater risk of injury. That risk increases to 30% on the night shift. A 12-hour work shift translates to a 37% increase in injury risk on the job and increased risk of vehicular crashes on the way home. And fatigue is suspected to have played a role in several high-profile incidents, including the Challenger disaster and the Chernobyl nuclear power plant meltdown. So, fatigue is a big deal, and we want to make sure that we are, taking all the right steps and measures to make sure that folks are staying alert and awake and, safe during their workday. So all the proposed technologies for this challenge must either measure, detect, or predict fatigue through psychological, behavioral, or performance-based indicators, mitigate the consequences of fatigue, directly or indirectly reduce fatigue, and all proposed technologies must demonstrate evidence of measurable impact on fatigue through validated studies, field trials, or documented outcomes beyond theoretical or speculative claims. So this context is very, very important for those interested in applying for the challenge. Again, trying to avoid more of those conceptual, well, it could, or it might. We really want to make sure that there is, concrete evidence that it does measure, detect, or predict fatigue, that it can mitigate it, and that it's got demonstrated evidence of impact. I always like to bring this slide to the forefront of this presentation because this is a really great demonstrative and visual look at sort of how the Work to Zero team and the reviewers of the challenge are measuring, sort of what we're looking for as far as impact with that technology. So at the National Safety Council, we use the hierarchy of controls, which was adapted from NIOSH, to identify sort of most effective versus least effective technologies. So obviously most effective technologies are ones that eliminate or remove or design out fatigue related risks. Next would be substitution, replacing sources of risk with less hazardous alternatives, followed by engineering controls, changing the work environment or work process. Then we have administrative controls, changing the way people work, and then PPE, providing a barrier against the risk. This should be the last resort. So I believe we'll be sharing these slides after this webinar. So if you want a copy of the hierarchy of controls, you can have it here. We also have additional resources on our Work to Zero page that covers this information if you're curious about learning more. All right, so shifting into the perks for innovators. What are some of the perks for participating in this challenge? The first is that you get to present to an audience that may differ from those at most safety and health conferences. As I mentioned earlier, NSC has two major conferences every year, our Spring Safety Summit and our Congress, and we have thousands of people that attend these conferences from all different walks of life, from all across the country. So this is a really great opportunity to have significant visibility in the space by being able to showcase your tech at the Safety Technology Pavilion, as well as potentially having the opportunity to showcase, towards the end of the event when we have the panel review. It's an opportunity for prototype and early stage technologies and solutions to showcase. So if you are a small business and you've already got your technology, you've proven that it works, and you really are ready to take that next step in your growth, again, great place to get some visibility, great place to network, great place to make connections. You can receive expert feedback on your solution. You will get a stipend for travel and attendance up to $4,500 if you're selected as one of our top 10 semi-finalists. And if you're selected as a winner, as I mentioned before, so we have the top 10 semifinalists who are selected after the applications are reviewed in, between January, February time. Those 10 semifinalists will attend the Spring Safety Summit. And then we have the voting period, which narrows it down to, I believe, 3 finalists, and then down from there to 1 finalist. So if you're selected as that winner, you'll receive a complimentary partnership plan in our NSC Tech Hub Marketplace. The Tech Hub Marketplace, for those who don't know, is another project of Work to Zero that is essentially a one-stop shop for individuals seeking innovative technologies. It's a web-based marketplace platform where you'll get a chance to create your own company profile, get leads directed to you. We have a series of filters baked into the marketplace for individuals searching for technologies based on hazards, based on risk, based on type of technology. You get to be a part of our Tech Hub Marketplace Advisory Council, connect with other tech providers, get an opportunity to co-host webinars alongside the Work to Zero team. So lots and lots and lots of great stuff going on at the Tech Hub Marketplace. And we'd love to see some of you, be involved or participate and be our winner and get your complimentary partnership plan. So a question that we get asked quite often from those who are new to our Safety Innovation Challenges is what happens after the challenge? So you've gone to Baltimore, you've participated, you've been in our Safety Tech Pavilion, you've met a lot of folks. What happens after? So the Safety Innovation Challenge, I like to say, has sort of two parts to it, two components. You know, sort of part one is the Safety Tech Pavilion at the Spring Safety Summit. And then part two is our pilot grant program. So if you are selected as one of our top 10 semifinalists, you will get the opportunity to engage in the pilot grant program, which will launch shortly after the end of the Spring Safety Summit. You'll get an opportunity to apply for up to $20,000 per application to pilot your technology with a client of your choosing. This could either be a current client that you have been wanting to work with, but maybe there's been a financial barrier to partner with them. This could be a client that you met at the Spring Safety Summit, maybe somebody that you networked with at the exhibitor hall. You're also allowed to submit more than one application. So if you have multiple clients or multiple networks that you want to pilot your technology with, you can submit multiple applications, each one for up to $20,000. Priority will be given to small to medium-sized and minority-owned businesses. So if you are working with a client that fits that description or that demographic, we do give priority to those organizations. And the idea of the pilot grant is that the client who will be piloting your technology will receive the $20,000 and be able to pay you for your tech. And then we will be building a case study about the implementation of this tech in their workplace, in their industry. It usually takes about 6 months from the time that the sort of check is written and given, usually before the end of June, to sort of do the actual pilot and implementation. You can use that $20,000 towards travel. You can use it towards the cost of technology. It's really a very robust and dynamic program to allow you to use the funds how you need. And then in November time is when we'll usually ask for sort of that midterm report, because our research team wants to be able to build a final report and a case study about the impact of this technology in these various industries. You'll be asked to attend regular check-in meetings with the Work to Zero team. We just want to make sure that you're staying on track, that we can answer any questions you might be having or help you overcome any challenges you might be facing. We really want to see you be successful in the pilot. So we want to make sure that we're, helping you every step of the way. And then you'll get an opportunity to present the findings of your case study, of your pilot, at our next NSC Spring Safety Summit in 2027. So I mentioned that the Safety Innovation Challenge from 2025, the spring of 2025, was heat stress. So those organizations are currently piloting their technology, and they will have an opportunity to present their final report, their findings, at the Spring Safety Summit in Baltimore. So you can see how it's kind of a rolling wave process here of how we keep these going. Jonathan shared some key dates, but I did want to make sure to just place some emphasis on those dates. Feel free to take a screenshot or a picture on your phone of some of these dates. The applications for the Safety Innovation Challenge on Workplace Fatigue opened on November the 6th. We have our introductory webinar today. Yay, thanks for being here. You've already checked the box. We will have office hours January 7th. The applications close on the 16th. Mid-February is when we're shooting for having the 10 semifinalists notified. Then we'll have the Safety Summit in May. And then mid-May will be the launch of the pilot grant program, with the pilot grant awardees announced no later than July the 1st. I know I just shared a lot of information, and we're already almost at the bottom of the hour, so I wanted to make sure to save some time for Q&A. But if you have some specific questions, you want to review some FAQs, the very specifics of the evaluation criteria of our review board, eligibility rules, and more, please check out the website. Lots and lots of great information on there. You can also reach out to TechConnect at the link that Jonathan shared, and then we can answer some questions here today. Which leads me to my question slide. Jonathan, do we have any questions in the chat about the information we've shared today?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes, we do. Okay. So one of the questions that we have, so the company that participates in the pilot grant program, they retain their IP rights, yes? They're not giving up anything in terms of IP if they participate in the pilot grant program, correct?
I would say yes and no. So the information that we create in the final report is the intellectual property of NSC. But as far as, like any patents or any other kind of, protected information, as far as the technology itself, that is protected by the organization applying. But we do ask that, for the purposes of the results of the case study that is being sponsored by the grant itself, that does become, property of NSC. We want to be able to freely publish those on our website, make them accessible to our members. But we can, if you have some specific questions about, what that information could or couldn't include, we do have a formal legal agreement that the grantee and the solution provider would sign with the National Safety Council once they've, been selected to be a part of the pilot program. And we could certainly review some of those terms and conditions in detail and make sure that you're comfortable with that final, that final agreement. But I can say sort of, right off the bat that we do want to make sure that the information produced in the case study is, publicly available for NSC to produce.
Okay, so kind of in summation, IP for the technology itself would stay with the inventor.
Correct.
IP as far as the information about how the case study went, that would end up being part of NSC. Yeah?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. All right. Our next question. I'm going to guess that the answer is probably yes to this one, but do you think a biotech solution for fatigue would potentially be in scope?
A what solution?
A biotech solution.
A biotech solution. Oh, that would be really interesting. I would say, feel free to apply. I think, there really isn't a whole lot of technologies that are completely off the table as far as the challenge. We want to make sure that we are, capturing as many innovative solutions and ideas as possible. So I'm going to say yes on that one.
Okay. All right. So I've got a question about TRL and whether or not it affects the proposal. If you look at the evaluation tab on the challenge page, you will see that there are points assigned to technical maturity. And the question is, can this proposed technology be ready for a pilot scale test mid-year 2026? If you can do that, you're in good shape. If you are so very early stage that you're just conceptual at this point, you're probably not likely to be able to meet that timeline, and therefore you would be too early stage to participate this particular time around. So I would focus less on the TRL number because, as the submitter says, it's kind of subjective. Think more about the overall readiness of your technology and whether or not you would be able to meet that particular time frame of being ready for a pilot scale test in mid-year 2026. Hannah, anything that you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, I think actually one of our current pilots for the heat stress challenge was also kind of in a unique space in that way that they had a solution that was sort of ready to market, but they wanted to expand it into a new industry. So we definitely had some conversations with them about, well, you have a technology that's sort of in market, it's producible, but you're wanting to sort of expand it into a new industry, into a new space. And that was fair game. So we've been working with them in a pilot to allow them that opportunity. So I would agree with you, Jonathan, on your evaluation. As long as the technology is not in that conceptual phase, but maybe you're in a place where you have it in market in a certain industry. For example, maybe you're working with Department of Defense, you're working in the private sector, but you're ready to expand it into the public sector, but you need sort of support to do a little bit of that feasibility work, if you will, I think that that's certainly something that we could consider. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. And kind of along those lines, our next question here is, Submitter has a platform for measuring human performance and cognitive load, and wondering if their system might fit. And I would say, and please tell me if I'm wrong here or overstating it, as long as they can have a reasonably strong correlation between cognitive load and fatigue, that would probably fit, yes?
I would say so.
All right. I always like the short answers. It means I'm on the right path. Okay.
Plus, it means we can get through more questions.
Also, this too. Okay. All right. Question about whether or not the timing for the pilot grant. For instance, this particular submitter says that changing work conditions might mean their particular grant application might be effectively out of season. They're talking about fatigue correlation with heat stress. So is there a possibility that a participant could apply for a grant, but essentially delay its implementation because of what they're trying to study and prevent?
That's a great question. I would say honestly, it's a case by case basis. We have made some flexible choices with previous pilot grantees to allow them to either compress or delay the start of their pilot. But I would say it would depend. There's only so much flexibility we can offer because the grant funding does come from the McElhatton Foundation. And so there are specific sort of deadlines and requirements that we need to make sure that we're aligning it with sort of the goals that we have for the year, as well as making sure that we can sort of compile that final report for sort of production for the next spring summit. So I would say, if you can provide some more information about the level of flexibility, are you needing to delay a year? Are you needing to delay, a month or 2 months? I think that those are conversations that, if it's a short delay, I think there might be conversations that we could have.
Okay, great. Next question actually might be one for me. What if the proposed working solution has not gone through the IP protection process completely yet and belongs to a small-sized company? First and foremost, everything that you are going to put in your response, whether it is in the online form or in the form of an attachment, must be at a non-confidential level. That way, you're not giving up any IP by responding to the program. You're not sharing it with NSC, you're not sharing it with TechConnect, you're retaining all of it. Typically, the immediate response is, well, how do I tell you a great story about my technology without revealing any confidential information? Treat it like a dinner party introduction. NSC has effectively walked up to you and says, what do you do? Well, you're going to tell them the good, interesting, engaging information about what your technology can do, not how your technology does it. That's the key difference there. Talk about what it does, not how it does it. And that way, you're protecting your IP. You're not giving anything away just by participating in the program. We've got just a few more minutes left, so just a couple more questions here. Asking about recording. Yes, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the channel page after this, possibly later this week or early next week, so keep an eye out for that there.
I'll jump to the next slide too, just so anyone who may be needing to jump off early can have access to my email. If you have any questions, you can also reach out to TechConnect. But just putting this up here in case anybody has any of those specific questions about wanting more information about, for example, that legal agreement, talking about IP, things like that. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to walk that through with you.
Great, thanks, Hannah. A number of the questions that we still have left in here are basically along the flavor of, we have a technology, would it be in scope? At the start of today's session, when we talked about the possible pathways, one of the things that I said was, if your technology has the capability of addressing fatigue in some capacity for some industry, for some application, NSC wants to hear from you. So for all of you who asked really great questions about whether or not a technology would potentially be in scope, does it address fatigue? Yes? Great. Can you identify an industry or an occupation that might benefit from the deployment of your technology? Great. Go ahead and submit a response. We want to hear from you about your technology and what it can do to address fatigue in the workplace. So, folks, we have just a couple more minutes. If there's any last minute final questions coming in, we'll get to them. If not, I'll go ahead and start to wrap things up. Katie, thank you for taking care of some things in the background. Appreciate you. I'm not seeing any additional questions come in. Folks, thank you very much for taking some time today. Appreciate you signing in. If you have questions outside of today's webinar, number one, go to the challenge page, fatiguesafety.techconnect.org. There's going to be a ton of information there. Obviously, Hannah referenced a whole bunch of information available on NSC websites. You might want to go take some time there and look there. But January 16th, you need to have your application in by 8 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure that you do that if you're interested in participating. Yes, this webinar was recorded and will be made available on the challenge page. Outside of today's webinar, if you realize that you have a question, reach out to challenges@techconnect.org. We will do our best to get you the information that you are looking for. With that, folks, I'm going to wrap everything up and say thank you very much once again, Hannah Everett from NSC, from joining me today. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day. To our attendees, thank you for participating in today's session. Looking forward to talking to you all again in the office hours and seeing all the wonderful technologies that you propose for this program. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.